it was a lot of fun. Jackson White, he had to do all the heavy lifting. I had to just kind of look askance at him every once in a while, reprimand him, smoke a cigarette every once in a while.
We are here to talk about Pet Sematary Bloodlines, which is such a great movie. Available on Paramount Plus, but coming to digital on December the 5th, and then Blu-ray, DVD, 4K Ultra on December 19th. Make a great last-minute Christmas present for horror fans, Stephen King lovers. Just throwing that out there. And in the movie, you play Dan Crandall, father of Judd Crandall, who fans will remember as I guess the 2019 version of the Pet Sematary. So John Lithgow. So you're John Lithgow's dad.
It was a lot of fun. Jackson White, he had to do all the heavy lifting. I had to just kind of look askance at him every once in a while, reprimand him, smoke a cigarette every once in a while.
Vaguely serious, but you get to mostly get to deliver the iconic line, sometimes dead is better. Yeah. There's a moment, we don't want to spoil anything, but you start it. Sure. Was it exciting to get this? I know you've done a lot of Stephen King projects over the years, and you've done a lot of big projects, and certainly with working with Mike on House of Usher and Poe and all that, but still getting to deliver that line has got to be fun for you, I would assume.
Yeah, it's always fun.
Those classics.
You just can't give it away too much.
Sure.
How much fun it is. It has to seem very fresh, right?
That's a good point. Yeah. I wanted to ask, you play a father. You've played a father quite a bit over the last few years. Father is a big role for you, and you get to all do these very different kinds of fathers. And I found myself reflecting on that, watching this movie and thinking back on House of Usher and thinking back on Hill House and some of these other projects. And I'm curious, I know that a lot of times actors don't want to bring another role into a new role with them, but do you ever sort of, when you're looking at a story, or when you're looking at a character like Dan, do you ever kind of reflect on some of those other father characters and think about how they are in comparison?
With the work that I did with Mike, a lot of those dads are his dad.
Okay.
Right. It was written as his dad, but when I played it, it sort of became a merge between, my idea of that and the real thing. So a little of that happens no matter what, but mainly I find one thing to latch onto as kind of the anchor for the character. Like for Dan in this film, Pet Sematary Bloodlines, it's about keeping his son out of the draft lottery and getting him out of that town because he's got, he's carrying a secret, and he's been carrying it, and it's a generational secret, so it's a big deal for him. And that's really beyond the text. That's all I really had to hold on to in my few scenes with with Jackson and everybody else, So if you can find something like that as an actor that is kind of the character's semaphore, it makes your job a lot easier.
Sure.
Yeah. And it resonates. It tends to resonate with people.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Being a father myself, I have a teenager. He's going to be a senior next year.
Oh, wow.
So that's something that I reflect on. I'm like, wow, how would I handle that? Which of these fathers would I be? Could I be David Duchovny's, version of a father? And are they really all that dissimilar ultimately? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of gray areas.
it's an interesting, predicament to put yourself in. So things like that,
Yeah.
that made Dan Crandall real for me. And that's the hardest thing. I mean, King is great about it because he writes characters, but also, in the horror genre, it's sometimes overlooked.
Mhm.
So as an actor, I think when you can find things like that to kind of anchor the character into something, then it becomes more resonant with people.
And I think what you touched on there about the way that King writes characters, and but he does so well, and also he does sort of groupings well, also if you think about like It and stuff like that. And what I really really like about Bloodlines is that this story takes sort of the very personal perspective story from the original Pet Sematary, which is very like straightforward. It is a family. It's a small cast of characters. Really, it's a family and what they're going through, and Judd Crandall. And this story goes back and expands and shows you sort of spider webs you didn't even know existed before. I thought that was a really fascinating approach to the story.
Lindsay Beer, who directed and wrote it, she did a great job. And this was her film directorial debut. But you know, she she was a colleague of Mike Flanagan's. They knew each other. I guess they had worked together or knew each other from the writing world. And anyway, he had nothing but good things to say about her. So, that was kind of that was that was one of the main reasons why I said, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. She did a phenomenal job with the story and the way that she handled all that. Do you I mentioned this earlier, but you've done a lot of Stephen King stuff in the past. Do you still get excited like whenever like if you see a Stephen King project come up, are you still like, yes?
Well, yeah, but I feel a little guilty because, there's such hardcore fans,
Yeah.
and they talk to me and I'm like not very knowledgeable about King. I've worked on a lot of adaptations, but I'm not like a guy that has read, tons of Stephen King.
Get it.
So I always feel a little guilty because people are like, wow, this is another Stephen King must really like you. And
I will admit I too am not very well read. I have the Night Shift book up here. I've read a lot of the short stories. Love that stuff. Cujo and those kinds of things. But the classics, if you will.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, but you know what? It's still always exciting for to see a Stephen King property out there, and what Lindsay did with this is fantastic. The performances you guys give are awesome. Henry, thank you very much for taking time to chat with us today. I really appreciate it.